There's a lot of ways to think about having someone understand what's going on in our area. I think one way that I've done in the past is sort of just talk about a week in the life up here. And when I'm thinking of that week, that I'm going to sort of refer to, I was coming back to the office. I was almost run into at a stoplight. I pulled over. A block later, I had someone else from the office in the car. The car that almost hit us drove around us, went to the end of the street, and shot and killed a resident. That was a very real thing. Just a few days later, there was another shooting that left one person dead and another person pretty severely injured. That's an area it's got heavy narcotics presence. A lot of crack cocaine is actually being sold out of the area. And folks may actually also know that block because it's from Rocky. So when Rocky's yelling up to Adrian, it's on that block and folks are familiar with it. If you move up the street, it was a Friday and there's an encampment that was here. And that encampment had probably about 30 tents on that day, and which is probably 60 to 75 people that were there. And I think what's relevant, again, when we're thinking of context, is that maybe a month before, there was encampments here, there were some encampments here, and there were some other ones along the way. The city looked and said, hey, we're going to clear encampments, but they chose to clear them here and here, which is also along the gentrifying areas. They didn't clear any along the way in the middle, and I think it's a part of what has generally been a containment strategy for this area for a long time. As a result, when those were cleared, a space that was previously empty, all of a sudden, surprise, surprise, became an encampment, right? What's the other reality that was going on at that space? Most of the folks that were living there weren't just unsheltered, but were also, again, suffering from substance use disorder. And so there was all of a sudden a heavy presence of folks who were using narcotics on a daily basis. And if you just start doing the math, if each person has a $50 a day habit and you got 60 people, you got $3,000 a day that's being generated there. In a week, that's $20,000. Again, just keep building that up and you get to, it's about $1 million a year. And that's how much that little green space all of a sudden is worth. And what comes next is people fighting over that. And so that Friday, maybe a month after this area had been established, at probably 3 o'clock in the afternoon, a man was shot and killed. He was shot, I think, 11 times and killed right here, where the detectives are standing. What's also important is as all these things are going on and the city is making their moves and has essentially created a de facto camp that is sanctioned by the city, they haven't given any additional supports there. There's no one there from homeless services. There's no one there taking people or giving people access to treatment. There's no police presence. So you have this situation that was going to end nowhere but there. That's there on a Friday. You just go right up the street, block and a half. Friday night, there were multiple shootings on this corner. The next morning, there was a shooting, or a stabbing, at a Quickie Mart, essentially, that's on this corner. On that same Saturday that happened, there was a shooting that took place in the park. And you see people just trying to have a somewhat normal day in a park that isn't a safe drug zone, essentially. And then the gunfire rings out, and people are dropping to the ground, and kids are running from a playground that they were just playing in. And it's terrifying what folks are going through up there. So that's just all of a sudden hitting on Saturday. So now we're just at Saturday. And this is an area that, again, is another sort of sanctioned space by the city. And that's not the first, those aren't the first shootings, obviously. There were shootings, all summer long, all into the fall. It's been going on there for years. And it's something that is very brutal to witness, and also the aftermath is something that's very heavy for people to see. And this is what it looks like to see somebody on the ground after they've been shot through the chest, with folks trying to just hold their life in them, literally. Um, but that's McPherson, and that was Saturday. You come right back to spot number 3 on Monday, right? So it's been Friday, Saturday. Now we're back to Monday, and I go up to the encampment to check on how things are going up there. I have 2 staff members with me. Um, we're up there and just checking things out, and we look across the street, and there's a man just being violently beaten by about 5 or 6 different people. He is unconscious, getting kicked in the head. It's a crazy situation. We run over there, people disperse, and we tend to him. You know, we call for an ambulance. We're trying to settle him down once he becomes conscious. And what we find out later was that he was beaten because he spoke to the police about what had happened on Friday. He was someone who was living in that encampment. And so that was sort of the violent reaction that came with it. And it was severe. You know, I had to go home and change my clothes. There was so much blood on me. Our staff members were traumatized by it. You know, so I'm sharing all of these, you know, not to be dramatic about what's going on up here. You know, folks read about all this horrible stuff, and I want to always also paint the incredibly important picture when we think about that larger area. There's 60,000 people in that larger area, and most folks are just good folks going to work, or trying to go to work, trying to go to school, trying to care for their kids. It's incredible folks in our community. We have so many wonderful assets, but unfortunately, we also have areas that are really under constant assault. You have to take that into account when you're developing a strategy for development in the area, when you're developing different projects that you're trying to do. It's not as simple as just bricks and mortar, you know, or renovating a building and expecting that everything's going to go well. We operate in very complex conditions, and it takes a lot of partnerships. It takes a lot of creativity to be successful.